Hello, friends. Putting is a very unique part of the game of golf, arguably completely different from the rest of the game. And it allows for a great deal of personality. So if you look at the vast array of designs of putters, I'm going to, for the purposes of this conversation, use one of the oldest forms, a blade putter with none of the modern uh, devices of weight distribution, offset, uh, center shaft, all those varieties. And this was typical of a putter that might have been used in the early part of the 20th century. The options for gripping the club are enormous. We see nowadays people with their hands reversed, with one or another of the forefingers extended, claw-like grips. The answer is they all work. Now, the grip, uh, the rules changed recently so that they could no longer be the big paddle grips that filled the hand in unique ways, beneficial ways, that were allowed in the past. And so now they're generally like a normal grip, but they have a flat front. And just for the purposes of starting to learn to play golf, grip your normal grip, but with both of your thumbs flat on that flat front. That's a good starting point. If subsequently you see something that's interesting and you try it and it works, of course, that's wonderful. Now, then you'll stand with the club dangling by your legs and relax. And then without using your shoulders, pull the hands and the club up to about waist high. That sets your arms, shoulders, and club in a good shape for putting. And then don't change them, but bend over and crouch until the club's touching the ground with the ball underneath your left eye as a good starting bid. Then the stroke. Most champions, and most of them don't even know they're doing this, start off first by tapping the ground very slightly, so small that nobody sees it but you. But the benefit is enormous because when we rest the club by the ball in preparation to hit, we often switch off the muscles that we just established. And we're scrambling to reacquire them during the backswing. And so you go tap, tap, tick, tock, and hold it. And do so without moving your head or knees. So the basic stroke is tap, tap, tick, tock, hold it. And it's not a wrist action, it's just a rocking of the shoulders. That's the basic formula for how to stand, grip, and swing. The goal with putting is to two putt. Now, we see champions very heroically hold putts from across the green, and even ourselves on occasion have that wonderful occurrence. But two putting is the standard. And in fact, if you look at par for any golf hole in golf, a par five is supposed to be hit in three shots by a good golfer hitting well, and then two putts. A par three, one stroke to get on the green and two putts. And that's how par was devised. It always took into account the idea of two putts. And they're really two quite distinct putts. And the first one is commonly called the approach putt or the lag putt. And although they do indeed occasionally go in the hole, our goal is to get them so close that the next one is not hugely troublesome. You'll see past me over here a circle of yellow balls around a hole that's about 35 feet away from me. Our job is to get the lag putt, the approach putt, inside that circle. That makes the second and one hopes final putt of the hole much more easy. There's a skill to judging the two things that will get you in that circle. And there are not three. The two things are, can you get the speed right and can you get the line right? Talking about the speed, if I give an average golfer or even a beginner, regardless of gender or age or skill as an athlete, a golf ball and a few opportunities to practice, they're going to be quite good at throwing the ball into that circle across a green. So that ball is now 6 inches from the hole. But I've found that my clients all can do that. What's interesting is that they have instinctive access to the skill, which is this. They were not looking at their hand or the ball as they threw it. They were looking at the target, perhaps the landing spot as well. You can see both at the same time. And that's the critical part of this. That allows the signal of what's happening to go in through the eyes to the brain, out the hand and back to the target. That completion of that sensory loop allows you to make better guesses about how hard to hit. Then what champions do is they do practice strokes. Now, most people do their practice strokes staring at the ground, and that's actually worthless. What a champion will do is they will get ready, having read the green, and then they'll look at the aiming spot, which let's argue is the hole for now. Obviously, if the ground is sloping, it might be a spot either side of the hole. And they don't take their eye off that spot, and then they go tap, tap, tick, tock, and then do it again. And each time they're asking themselves, does that feel the way it looks? Then they walk up, aim the club, tap, tap, and looking at the ball hit by memory, tick, tock. And so now we've got a golf ball. Well, I didn't aim it very well, but you see I got exactly the same distance. So that's how to get the speed right. Now we talk about how to aim the club. So how do we aim the club? Well, first of all, we have to read the green. And that term, very old-fashioned one, is surveying the ground to get some clues about where we should actually aim, because quite often it's not the hole. The ground will deflect the ball, and it does so in a, one hopes, predictable manner. Here's how champions do it. Uh, they walk around, but the first thing they do is they stand with the ball between them and the hole, and they crouch down, and the first thing they do is run their eye along the horizon. Because if your head is tilted when you're trying to read the green, you get no value from that reading. So they level their eyes, and then they look down to the ground between the ball and the hole, and they don't just scrutinize the corridor that you might guess would be where to send the ball. They actually scan back and forth across the green 2 or 3 times. And if you do that, you'll suddenly notice that you see all of the topography, all the humps and hollows, as subtle as they may be. And you can, from that, infer what the proper line of the putt might be. Now, that line is very rarely, possibly never, a parabolic curve like a rainbow. And the reason is simple. The ball starts off moving quite quickly, and then as it slows down, it will curve more. So the better image is to think of a rainbow. Sorry, not a rainbow, a fishing rod. So a fishing rod starts off moving fairly straight, curves a little in the middle, and then a lot at the end. And so let's assume that this ball will break a little bit from right to left. I'm going to aim at the right edge of my circle of yellow golf balls and see if the ball follows that fishing rod correctly. Tap, tap, tick, tock, tick, tock. Then walk up, put the club by the ball, put the feet in position provisionally, and then very importantly, look at the aiming spot, and without blinking, in 2 seconds, look at every inch of the putt in reverse. As soon as your eye gets near the ball, you'll see if the club needs adjustment. So run your eye in 2 seconds, adjust the club, then looking at the ball, tap, tap, tick, tock, and you'll notice it's starting to curve toward the hole. And whoops, just missed, but you can see that works quite nicely. So with regard to the putter design, take you 5 minutes to see that there's an unending supply of different ideas about how a putter might look. These ones, as I've shown you, that are characteristic of the evolution of putting through the 20th century, started off with the plainest of blades, which you just saw works quite well. Then a slightly more muscular version, a flanged blade, which was popularized by Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Gary Player, wonderful golfers. And then there was one of their contemporaries who was considered every bit as good as they were, Billy Casper, a wonderful golfer, who used one of these aluminium-headed Ray Cook putters, which had a lovely sound and feel to the way they hit, and had these very clearly designed score marks, actually cuts in the top of the aluminium that made it very easy to aim. And then, of course, we had people like Corey Pavin, for instance, using a bullseye, which is what they call a center shaft, which was only allowed sort of grudgingly by the Royal and Ancient many years after the USGA permitted it, because they thought it cheated. And no other club in the bag is allowed to have the shaft into the middle of the head. So the thing with putting is that you should find one that fulfills these requirements. Do you find it easy to aim? And have a friend stand behind you and tell you if you're aiming it where you think you're aiming it. Find one that's easy to aim, and then listen and feel for the contact and ask, does that make the sound and the feel and go the distance that you had anticipated? It's all to do with the way it's formulated and, of course, the materials that it's made from. And so that might come up a little short. This aluminium stuff does hit a little differently. You get the idea, though. So experiment. You've got lots of choices.